Hi, my name is Jeremiah Ewing. I graduated from CSU Dominguez Hills in 2019, my master's in humanities literature. I did my thesis on Hemingway and how religion and culture affected him. Given the years of research following Hemingway's death by suicide in 1961, I decided to re-examine the topic with fresh eyes and see if I could shed new light on it. Ernest Hemingway was born on July 21st, 1899 in Oak Park, Illinois. For the first 5 years of his life, Ernest lived with his parents, his sister Marceline, and his namesake grandfather Ernest Hall in Hall's Oak Park home. In the mornings, Grandfather Hall would lead the family, servants included, in prayer as they kneeled. In opposite contrast to all the others, Grandfather Hall did not have his head bowed. The eldest sister Marceline said that she would peek out and see Grandfather Hall with his head up and his arms stretched upward to God. To Marceline, Grandfather Hall knew God intimately. In addition, Grandfather Hall led daily devotions for the household. As the patriarch of the home, Grandfather Hall liked to be addressed as Abba, as in the biblical term for God, Abba, Father. Grandfather Hall would even lead Grace Episcopal Church in evening prayer. Ernest Hall once said of his grandson Ernest to his mother Grace, "This boy is going to be heard from someday. If he uses his imagination for good purposes, he'll be famous. But if he starts the wrong way, with all his energy, he'll end in jail, and it's up to you which way he goes." In his youth, Ernest and his elder sister were in a contest to see who could first read the entire King James Bible. Although he did not win, Ernest did complete the entire reading of the Bible. In fact, Ernest also took a comprehensive test on it. In addition, Ernest gave a tithe, or 10% of his weekly allowance, to the Sunday school. At the First Congregational Church, Ernest and Marceline joined the Plymouth League, where Ernest often led Sunday afternoon services. For the Plymouth League, Ernest took turns being the treasurer, the program chairman, and sometimes the speaker of the meetings. Moreover, at church, Ernest and Marceline played in the church orchestra. In 1918, Ernest Hemingway went to Italy and served in the Red Cross Ambulance Corps as a driver. However, Hemingway wanted to be closer to the action, so he volunteered to be a bicycle rider who delivered chocolate, tobacco, and mail to the soldiers at the front in the trenches. In Fosalta, Italy, along the banks of the Piave River, Hemingway was wounded by an Austrian trench mortar. People thought Hemingway was going to die, but he survived. It was in Italy where Hemingway deviated from his Christian upbringing. It could have been seeing and experiencing the horrors of war, or living in a part of the world where morals were less restrained, but Hemingway found new spiritual comfort in alcohol and women. While recovering, Hemingway met nurse Agnes von Kurowski. He fell in love. Hemingway wrote to William D. Horne, Jr. about his love for Agnes on March 30th, 1919. "But Bill, I've loved Ag. She's been my ideal, and Bill, I forgot all about religion and everything else because I had Ag to worship. All I wanted was Ag and happiness." However, Agnes broke off their engagement. After his return to the States, Hemingway was depressed and he loafed about. Finally, after an ultimatum from his mother, Ernest went out on his own on a quest for work. In Chicago in 1920, Hemingway met Hadley Richardson at a party, and once again he fell in love. The two were married on September 3rd, 1921 in Horton Bay, Michigan. Yet at times Hemingway's wife shocked him. She would spew forth language that, to Hemingway's mind, a woman should never utter. In his novels, Hemingway uses the theme of religion a lot. In The Sun Also Rises, Hemingway's protagonist, Jake Barnes, prays at a cathedral in Pamplona. Jake prays for mundane things like the upcoming bullfights and the Spanish festival of San Fermin. Jake thought, "I wondered if there was anything else I could pray for, and I thought I would like to have some money, so I prayed that I would make a lot of money." Later in the book, Jake's unfulfilled girlfriend, Brett Ashley, goes with him into a Pamplona chapel. She prays, however, her prayers are without comfort. After Brett and Jake leave the chapel, Brett comments that prayer never does her any good, and that she has never gotten anything that she has prayed for. Contrarily, Jake does say that he has gotten things that he has prayed for. Aside from this example, it is a common thread through Hemingway literature that prayers never get answered. This is again portrayed in Hemingway's posthumously published Islands in the Stream. Thomas Hudson's son David says this about prayer: "You can't tell, Audrey. You never know when prayer, may do good. I don't mean that Mr. Davis needs to be prayed for. I just mean about prayer technically. Although it is unknown if any of Hemingway's prayers were ever answered, he did pray." However, after the Spanish Civil War, his views on prayer changed. Hemingway explains his changed beliefs in his book, The Dangerous Summer. He expounds, "I never prayed for myself during the Spanish Civil War when I saw the terrible things that happened to other people, and I felt that to pray for oneself was selfish and egotistical." After Hadley Richardson and Ernest Hemingway got married, they moved to Paris in December of 1921. While in Europe, Hadley conceived a son, John Hadley Nicanor Hemingway, affectionately known as Bumby. In 1925, Hemingway met Pauline Pfeiffer at a Paris party. After first being interested in her sister, Hemingway developed an infatuation for Pauline Pfeiffer. The two had an affair. Hemingway later regretted this. He wrote of returning to Austria where he and his wife were vacationing. "I should have caught the first train from the Gare de l'Est to Austria, but the girl I was in love with was in Paris then. and I did not take the first train, or the second, or the third. When I saw my wife again standing by the tracks as the train came in by the piled logs at the station, I wished I had died before I ever loved anyone but her. After several months of the affair, Hadley gave Hemingway an ultimatum. Then, when only 75 days had expired, Hadley relented. Their separation was official in January 1927. Hemingway's divorce devastated his parents. Ernest Hemingway's youngest brother, Lester, once heard his dad, Dr. Clarence Edmonds Hemingway, say of Ernest, "No, it's a disgrace. I'd rather see him in his grave." Dr. Hemingway then tells Lester that there had not been a divorce in the Hemingway family for 70 years. In the meantime, Ernest wanted to marry Pauline. However, there was a stumbling block. Pfeiffer was a staunch Catholic, and marriage to a non-Catholic was expressly forbidden. So Hemingway tried to prove that he was Catholic. Hemingway claimed that after he was wounded in Fornaci, an Italian army chaplain had given him an extreme unction along with some other soldiers. In fact, Hemingway went back to Italy to find this priest, Don Giuseppe Bianchi, to see if he had performed an emergency baptism on him. Hemingway met and visited with Bianchi, however it is unknown if Ernest returned with an actual baptismal certificate. Yet he did swear to it, which is enough for the Catholic Church. Hemingway married Pfeiffer on May 10, 1927. With Pauline as his wife, Hemingway openly embraced Catholicism. "If anything, I am a Catholic. Had extreme unction administered to me as such in July 1918 and recovered. So I guess I am a super Catholic. It is most certainly the most comfortable religion for anyone soldiering. And not as what is called a good Catholic, but cannot imagine taking any other religion seriously." This seriousness was a byproduct of Pauline's adherence to the faith. Hemingway began to take doctrine, especially of sin, and the observance of prayer seriously. Hemingway became even more of a Catholic believer after he prayed in a church and was cured of his postmarital impotence. Woven into his writings are a number of stories involving Catholic characters. In the previously mentioned The Sun Also Rises, the protagonist Jake Barnes is nominally Catholic. He basically lives the way he wants to, prays, and goes to church on occasion. This is kind of like Hemingway, who, although not a nominal Catholic, lived the way he wanted to while still claiming to be Catholic and following some rituals. Catholicism is also an ingredient in Hemingway's novel, A Farewell to Arms. In this novel, the protagonist, Frederick Henry, has no religion whatsoever. However, there is a Catholic influence on him, the priest. Yet there is a difference between the two. After Frederick's war injury, the priest comes to him in the hospital. Although Frederick confesses that he does not love God, he does say that he is afraid of him in the night sometimes. Yet during especially trying times, Frederick turns to God. For example, when Frederick first receives his war injury, he cries out to God, "Get me out of here!" At the end of the book, when his girlfriend Catherine's baby dies, Frederick thinks the baby should have been baptized. When Frederick realizes Catherine might die, he prays, "Everything was gone inside of me. I did not think. I could not think. I knew she was going to die, and I prayed that she would not. Don't let her die. Oh God, please don't let her die. I'll do anything for you if you won't let her die." Other non-religious Hemingway characters have religious influences as well. In a Spanish Civil War novel, For Whom the Bell Tolls, the main character, Robert Jordan, has a presumably Christian father. This comes to a head when in his youth, Robert Jordan's father sees him off at a train station. His father gets emotional and says a prayer over Robert. In response, Robert Jordan had been so embarrassed by all of it, the damp religious sound of the prayer, by his father kissing him goodbye, that he had suddenly felt so much older than his father, and sorry for him that he could hardly bear it. This is similar to Ernest leaving home for the first time and his devoted father seeing him off. To compound all this, Robert Jordan's father shot himself to death in the same manner that Hemingway's father did. Robert, in Hemingway's words, understood his father and he forgave him everything, and he pitied him, but he was ashamed of him. This quite possibly could have been the case for Hemingway as well. Additionally, it is quite probable that Hemingway's dad's suicide pushed him further away from the Protestant tradition in which he had been raised. Dr. Clarence Edmonds Hemingway had been a church deacon and a very upright and religious man. Despite the fact that Ernest Hemingway was raised by pious Protestant parents and the fact that he married a sincere Catholic woman, he did not turn out to be a good man. Although he did some good things, Hemingway's Catholic faith did not transform him. Hemingway did not have a salvation experience, nor was his faith life altering. His religious life was one solely of Catholic rituals. Hemingway did not overcome his problems, and in the end his problems overcame him. Despite his character flaws, Hemingway had a good childhood and some good experiences as an adult. He even incorporated his bad experiences into his literature. Hemingway's keen insight, his precise powers of observation, his absorption of the knowledge gained from others, and the Protestant work ethic of his youth paid off as Hemingway put all of his being into trying to be an honest writer, writing one true sentence at a time and helping his audience to see the world through open and honest eyes, to help his readers see, feel, and almost literally experience firsthand what he was writing about. The good, the bad, and the ugly.